Under the arrangement of many elders, the 200-plus participants were clearly divided into groups and carried out according to the elimination system. As the top 10 experts of the Soaring Dragon ranking, they would naturally carry out the final competition. The big competition this time will be held in 3 arenas at the same time. According to the number of the arenas, you can go to the corresponding arenas. On the high platform, Elder Wu's face was solemn, and his voice was like thunder. Every match has a time limit of 15 minutes. After the time limit is up, if the winner and loser are not decided, the elders on the elders' seats will naturally make an objective evaluation. Of course, in order to increase the intensity of the competition, the top 50 students of the Soaring Dragon ranking will be competing in the main arena. Hearing Elder Wu's words, everyone in the viewing platform was stunned for a moment, then they were overjoyed. The top 50 students of the Soaring Dragon ranking were all extremely strong. To be able to see their final battle on the main arena, this trip was not in vain. When the contestants heard what Elder Wu said, they were not moved. Each of their faces had a high-spirited temperament, and they were all rubbing their fists, preparing to go all out. Xiaoyan, Zuna and a few others sat on the stone bench and raised their heads to look at the high platform. Dozens of elders sat on the high platform and looked down with interest. Among these elders, there were some unfamiliar faces. However, judging from the attitude of Elder Wu towards them, it was not difficult to see the strength of these elders. Buzz! Along with an ear-splitting bell chime, Elder Wu waved his hand and said with a long and drawn-out voice, "In a courtyard competition, begin now." As the voice faded, the entire high platform instantly boiled up. The shouts shook the heavens and earth. On the contestants' seats, following the name of a few elders, 6 contestants stood up from the crowd and leapt towards their respective competition grounds. Xiaoyan looked at the arena. There were 2 young men on the arena. As soon as they stepped onto the arena, they unleashed the true strength. Both of them were at the 7th Monic Spirit, and their strength was almost the same. The next match will be Uncle Zhu. He retracted his gaze. Xiaoyan looked at Zhu Kun, who was standing at the side. The latter nodded his head and his face was filled with excitement. Following the judge's order, the participants of the 3 arenas began to fight intensely. For a moment, the sound of Origin Key exploding could be heard without an end, causing the atmosphere of the arena to reach its climax. Only the battles on the home ground can be watched. The other 2 arenas are really boring. On the high platform, in an inconspicuous corner, Yuan Shenmu faintly looked at the battles on the 3 battlefields and shook his head. Zan Kai, who was standing at the side, did not say a word. His eyes jumped over the arena and looked at the competition seats. There was a young man wearing a red robe sitting there quietly. As if he had noticed Zan Kai's gaze, the young man raised his head and nodded at Zan Kai. "That's the guy you raised." Yuan Shenmu leaned back on the chair and asked lazily. A sharp light flashed in Zan Kai's eyes. He nodded and said slowly, "That's right. Senior Yuan, can you tell anything?" Hearing Zan Kai's words, Yuan Shenmu shifted his gaze back to Zhu Tianhou. After a long time, he finally spoke with some astonishment. "What's going on with this guy?" Zan Kai revealed a smile when he heard this. He said in a deep voice, "His constitution is very special." Yuan Shenmu frowned and looked at Zhu Tianhou with more confusion. He could feel a burning sensation from this guy, like a raging fire. What kind of physique? Yuan Shenmu looked at Zan Kai. His expression was not as lazy as before. Sacred fire body. Zan Kai's lips moved and he said in a deep voice. Yuan Shenmu frowned. He was just about to speak when Zan Kai slowly spoke. The great world. There were many geniuses with mutated physiques. All of them had mutated physiques without exception. At the beginning, they were all extremely weak. After pausing for a moment, Zan Kai continued, Mahuyang's younger sister, Mahiyu. She was also a person with mutated physiques. Her eyes, it was called the purple illusion eye in ancient books, and it had the effect of hallucinating. The sacred fire body, on the other hand, used its body to store fire. He was a flame, and the flame was him. The growing sacred spirit fire body. Being called the King of Fire isn't an exaggeration at all. After listening to Zhang Kai's description, Yuan Shenmu looked at Zhu Tianhou in surprise. Zhu Tianhou lowered his head and didn't say anything. He didn't care about the intense competition. Emperor of Fire, what a domineering title. Yuan Shenmu smiled as if he had thought of something. He looked at Zhang Kai and said in a low voice, "You want to use him to resist Mahiyu." Zhang Kai shook his head and said, "This is not the whole reason." Although they are both mutated, Mahiyu was already familiar with the illusion purple pupil. This point, Zhu Tianhou is still far from being a match for him, but she could still get the second place. At that time, he would have the qualifications to enter the core of the Spirit Pavilion. There was an introduction to the sacred spirit fire body, and with his talent, that's enough for me to master the sacred spirit fire body. After listening to Zhang Kai's introduction, Yuan Shenmu silently nodded his head and pondered for a moment before saying, "So, that Saint rank trial participant, what is your evaluation?" "He is someone who can kill Li Yin." Saint rank trial participant. He is very strong, but compared to Zhu Tianhou, there is still a gap. The sacred spirit fire body is known as the King of Fire, and it can control 10,000 flames. A few days ago, the Saint rank trial participant fought with Bai Yongzhao. Even if he can defeat Bai Yongzhao now, there is no way he can defeat Zhu Tianhou. Hearing Zhang Kai's assertion, Yuan Tianmu smiled. "You are really confident." After a pause, Yuan Shenmu's eyes flashed. He looked at the two figures not far away, Zhou Alliance and Wei Li. Zhang Kai followed Yuan Shenmu's gaze and saw two young men sitting in the crowd. They were also looking at them. Although they were surrounded by the crowd, their temperament was like the stars in the night sky, attracting people's attention. There has been something wrong with these two guys. Now that they have come out, it seems like they're quite attentive. Yuan Shenmu shook his head and said with a smile, "What's so strange about that?" This time, not only Mahiyu and Wu Shaoqi, but also Saint rank trial participant and Zhu Tianhou. Now that you mention it, I can't help but watch their battle. As the two of them were talking, the 3 matches in the arena had all ended. The intensity of the battle had also won the applause of the entire arena. The loser was dejected, and the winner was waiting for the next match. Next match, the main arena, Zhu Kun, Zhuang He. Elder Wu's voice slowly rang out, causing Zhu Kun, who had just stood up, to be slightly startled. Immediately, he looked at Zhuang He, who was also standing up not far away from Shaoyan. The latter recovered his senses and looked at Zhu Kun with a sneer on his face. It seemed like this match was a sure win. Zhu Kun's strength was already much weaker than his. Furthermore, he had gotten the help of that fellow. Thinking of this, Zhuang He turned his head and looked at the young man who was standing not far away. The young man lowered his head and said nothing. Zhuang He, Shaoyan and the others couldn't help but look at Zhuang He after hearing what he said. This guy had a conflict with them from the beginning. Now that he was facing Zhu Kun, they guessed that he wouldn't show any mercy. "Uncle, be careful." Zuna looked at Zhu Kun and said in a low voice. Zhu Kun smiled when he heard her. He nodded and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. This month, I am not idle either." Guyuan, who was standing beside him, wasn't really worried. Clearly, he was quite confident in Zhu Kun's strength. Watching the arrival of Zhu Kun and Zhuang He, Shaoyan also perked up. This match should be more interesting than the previous one. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.